everyone for being here. We really appreciate taking time out of your schedule to listen to what we've done and listen to a little bit of the research that has been recently conducted as a way to understand Hibbing's brand now that it's been a few years since we did a branding initiative. And I'm going to start by just talking about a little bit more about the brand. Some of you in this room know a little bit about the initiative that was done a few years ago, and some don't. So several years ago, a branding initiative where the goal was to try and figure out Hibbing's competitive identity, what's distinct and unique about Hibbing as a community, and how can we kind of get into that core identity and use it to market the community in order to increase the community as far as economic development, etc. So just a brief review of that original initiative and why we did it in the first place. So in simplest terms, a brand is just your reputation. And every community has a reputation. So part of any of a brand initiative is first to understand what is our reputation in the minds of our consumers. We typically refer to it as brand image. Brand image is your perception or what they say about you when you're not around. What is out in the marketplace, in the chatter? What is our word of mouth? What kind of a reputation do we have out in the marketplace? Reputation is just people talking. You know, what are they saying? They talk about what they see, hear, and experience. So what is that out there? And as far as economic development, 71% of the time, your community's reputation is what gets you on the economic development shortlist. So before a company decides where to relocate, typically it's about word of mouth and that reputation of that community. They're going to create a shortlist before they do any real kind of research. Branding then becomes the practice of managing that reputation. Brand initiative attempts to identify our brand so that we can perhaps influence our residents' perception of the community. So today what we've done is a few years later, after the brand image has been put into place, the Ore and More brand, and a brand is just an identity. The logo is just a logo. So a brand means not just the logo, not just the line, Ore and More, but a brand is the placing of this identity, the declaration of who we are and who we want to be. And what we did is a few years, the brand was put into place, as you all know. A lot of initiatives were put to the community as far as marketing. A lot of merchandise and the logo is all over the place. And so what we wanted to know is a few years later now, what's changed? Have we done what we set out to do? We changed perceptions. Our brand identity changed. So today what we're going to talk about is the results of that research. First, an introduction to the methodology that we used. Our findings, including where our respondents came from, who they are, brand awareness, brand image, brand advocacy. What does all that mean? Just tying it up with a couple of insights and implications. The reason that we wanted to do this is because good marketing is measurable, meaning we put these initiatives into place, we figure out our competitive identity by the brand, and we begin marketing it, and we begin using that brand to put out into the into not just the community but also outside to have people understand who we're declaring this idea as a communty. Good marketing, you're able to measure it later. Look back and see where the needle has moved. Are people aware of this brand that we've introduced? What words are they associating with it now versus the way that they did it 3 years ago? And has it been an effective tool for influencing public perception? So that's what we're talking about today. Search. How did we get this information? Well, it's an online survey that was sent out to Hibbing residents, visitors, and employees. We use what's called the network method. So we shared the link among people. One person would take the survey and then share that survey link with all of their network, who would share it with all of their network. We had a really great response to the survey. We had about 384 responses. which represents statistical significance, and I'm going to explain what that means in just a second, 95% plus or minus 4.94. So when you see political polls and they say margin of error is 4 points or 5 points, what they're talking about is this margin of error right now, right here. What it means is, based on full calculations and just simple mathematics, we know that because we have such a high response rate of 384 responses, 95% sure that the results in this survey, all the numbers I'm about to show you, are dead on, plus minus 5 percentage points. So if we say 60% of your residents think X, we're 95% sure that it falls between 55 and 65%. So we can be very confident in these results, and statistically. We've also asked the respondents in the survey to identify themselves in a number of ways, as residents, as outsiders who have been to Hibbing, as business owners in Hibbing. And we did that so that we could cross-tabulate their perspectives in order to provide useful insights about the differences. How that overall people think this, but when you look deeper into that, what is the difference between what residents think, what business owners think, what visitors think? So just start off with, where are these folks coming from and who are they? Great cross-section of people who took this survey. We've got very well represented in all of the age categories, as you can see, from 25 to 65. The majority of our respondents fell into those age ranges. Also, really good spread of incomes down here, the majority between $75,000 and $100,000 income. We had a majority of folks with female gender. That's typical of market research surveys. Women are much more likely to take those surveys. When we asked to identify themselves in relation to Hibbing, 58% of our respondents were residents. They live there. 26% have been there but don't live there. We classified them as visitors. And about 16% owned a business there. Some of them lived in Hibbing and some of them live outside of Hibbing. We're going to be talking a little bit more in depth about the identities of these folks. Brand awareness, and this will be the first bunch of findings that I present here today. Brand awareness, look to see, answer the question, have our residents or our consumers seen our logo, for instance, logo that we've been putting in our marketing campaigns, putting it there on the street, on stickers, on banners, on signs? Are they seeing it? Are they aware of this initiative that we've done? What does Ore and More, first of all, have you seen the logo and the line, and what does Ore and More mean to you? So here are some of our results. The open-ended question. We were asking these folks to identify what does it mean to them, just open-ended, in your own words. Tell us what it means. And then after the fact, during the analysis process, we were able to go through and code each of their answers into positive, negative, or neutral. What we found was that 44% of the responses are positive. If we couldn't classify them as either positive or negative, then we labeled them as neutral. And those neutral sentiments were things like this, just statements, and supported by mining, Hibbing's branded campaign logo. Can't classify those as positive or negative. So those are neutral. But positive ones were very clearly we have much more to offer than just iron ore. Ore and More means to me a lot more to offer than that. We have a great town, our roots in ore, but we're a strong and proud community. In so few words, none would explain Hibbing better. And just mining, but what should be stressed is the quality of life and all of that. So about 44% of those comments we classified as positive sentiments, about 25% classified as negative sentiments. So that's a really good thing to see. Our residents are supportive of this brand identity that we've developed. Recall, have you seen this logo before and this tagline before? 7% of our respondents said, yes, I do recall seeing that logo or tagline before. That is a great rate of recall. ask where did they see the logo, 30% saw it on a banner downtown. All folks seeing it on the water tower, city vehicles, trucks, city web page. Folks were allowed to choose more than one answer here. And these are the responses I get for where did you see the logo. So clearly the logo actually being seen around town, people remembering it, recalling it. Split those up by group, by segment. You can see that residents are actually, well, besides business owners and residents, there's a few of these guys. There's a lot of residents in the survey. 94% of residents recall the logo, which is a great recall rate. Visitors, not quite as much so. The initiatives that have been put into place were directed inwardly and not as much outwardly, so that's not a surprise. It's actually quite good. 69% of our visitors, people who do not live here, see the logo. So it's out there and being seen. So image. Now let me give a little bit of background in this before I jump into it. Several years ago when we did the original brand research, North Star comes from a perspective that brands are discovered, not created. I mean, you have to know what your reputation is in the marketplace before you can go out changing it. Therefore, to identify that reputation requires research. So we already have, years ago, talked to your residents and stakeholders and consumers about what they think about Hibbing. We have a lot of background in that, and that's what led to the development of the brand. So we wanted to see how things changed. Is perception. So how have perceptions changed since we've put this brand into place? The first question we asked respondents in the survey was, when you first think of Hibbing, what comes to mind? Another just open-ended question. Tell us what you think in your own words. Responses were placed into a word cloud generator. You guys have seen these kinds of word clouds before. A word cloud takes it's a textual analysis tool, and it takes all the text, all the answers from all of the respondents, and it generates a picture that shows the size of the word representing the number of times that word occurred in the text. I noticed here, first of all, that mining comes up very quickly as the largest one. Some strong associations with family, home, town, small town, high school. Whether you can see someone saying that. The Iron Range, home. Some associations here. That is qualitative, open-ended, so it's difficult to compare as a benchmark from several years ago, but we will be getting to that in just a moment. What we did find is that brand image has increased for mining as a whole, but is also associated with all these other great things about living in Hibbing. That question, when you first think of Hibbing, what comes to mind? So at once, you just saw it in the word cloud. We then got some of the quotes that were really representative of what we were seeing and separated them into the quotes that were positive and the quotes that were negative. Positive than negative. But some of the positive patterns that we saw were about raising family, great educational system, friendly people, hometown pride. And we like to illustrate that with some verbatim quotes from your residents, because a lot of this is really kind of good here. To raise a family, great town to live in, but has so much more potential. The beautiful landscape, the pride of the people, rich history of the immigrants, and the impressive educational system. We did this brand initiative of several years ago. Was developed as the brand that would go with that would complement and move forward the identity of Hibbing as only mining and iron ore. And what we're seeing, I'll show you this more in just a minute, is a lot of this. We always did see hometown pride with Hibbing residents. They're very proud of where they live. Your residents are very proud to live there. More of that. I'm proud of this community because we have a good educational system. We are great people, good neighbors. We have rich history. Some more negative things that we heard. Hibbing has a lack of stores and things to do, sometimes behind the times, or can be seen as lifeless or lethargic. Wish more for the kids to do around town. Want vibrant city. Difficulty in attracting major stores. Does not advance itself in today's world. So you're never going to get all positive responses from your residents when you ask them a question like this. But these are the concerns Hibbing residents have. So that's an open-ended question. This is a closed-ended question that we can actually measure. So we said the word that best describes Hibbing is, and choose one of these words. What we got is 37% said mining. The word that best describes Hibbing is mining. Other than that, it was historic, friendly, resilient, affordable. In the other category, we have comfortable, troubled, family, boring, lethargic, quaint, safe, traditional, a lot of these descriptive words. Now, this is the exact same question that we asked folks 8 years ago. So we look at that benchmark in the red, measured in 2008, and compare it to what we got this year, and how things have changed. Goals of the initiative was to increase the identity in mining, but we'll move that forward into other positive things about Hibbing, Ore and More. You can see here is there's a definite increase in identity of Hibbing as associated with mining, about 10% over 3 years. Also increased in historic and some of those other categories. It's reduced its identity as resilient, affordable, and growing. So things have changed over 3 years. That same question cross-tabulated between different groups. You can see that those strongest associations with mining are coming from visitors and business owners, whereas business owners, residents are tending to think in other ways. They're also thinking about it as being historic. You remember, business owner only was a small category, not a lot of respondents in that particular category, but it is interesting to look at how business owners only, if they don't live in Hibbing, but they do own a business in Hibbing, they tend to think about it as being resilient. They're also more likely to think about Hibbing as being friendly. Now that we know what people think about Hibbing, what comes to mind when they think about it, and how they recall the brand or how strongly they recall the brand of the logo, we want to know how likely residents are to promote this community to others. Who of our residents are advocating on our behalf? When the conversation comes up, who's likely to say, oh, Hibbing is a great community to live in, you really should check it out. We've got a lot of things going on. Continue to brag about Hibbing. We measured this years ago in 2008, so we're able to re-measure today, use that previous measurement as a benchmark, and show how much we've progressed over the 3 years now that the brand's been implemented and some initiatives have been put into place. This is taken from market research theory called Net Promoter Score, if anyone's familiar with that. The idea is to be able to measure how strong word-of-mouth marketing is in playing a role in a company's success. It was originally developed for companies, and we adapted it for communities. It's the same principle. The question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not at all likely and 10 being extremely likely, how likely would you be to recommend Hibbing to a friend or colleague? So there's 3 questions. How likely would you be to recommend living in Hibbing? What about working in Hibbing? What about visiting Hibbing? Trying to understand from residents, and this is residents only, how about that. So here are our responses. We've got, we call it the barometer, a measurement of the health of the reputation of the community, how willing your residents are to recommend you as a place to live, work, and play, is a reflection of the strength a reputation, the positive reputation as a community. Considering the fact that the work was done in 2008, 2009, everyone knows what happens. The ruin hit, the economy dropped. Were some results that actually increased. Now, we're having a lot of communities that the economy is influencing a lot of the ways that their residents think, not just about themselves, their job opportunity, this country, but their community as well. A lot of negative influences there. So we're seeing a lot of these kinds of measurements going down for 2009. I'll tell you in a little bit, but what we found is that in Hibbing it's actually gone up, which was quite fantastic. We have is about 33% of your residents being strong promoters of the Hibbing brand. And the promoter score theory, it said if someone scores a 1 to 6 on this question, they're considered detractors. Now, what that means is without picketing or anything like that, but may be caught saying something negative about their community in conversations with others. On the other hand, if you score a 7 or 8 passive, they tend to be neutral. Not necessarily saying anything negative, but not necessarily saying positive things either. Promoters is what we're really after. If you're 9 or 10 on this question, these folks are likely to be promoting Hibbing to others and saying how great it is as a community. They have no problem shouting from the rooftops how much they love their town, how proud they are of their town. And those are the kind of people that really influence a community's reputation. It's important for us to understand there and are they advocating for our community, and to what extent are they advocating for our community. In the category of living, an increase in the number of promoters for the community. This is pretty normal. If you put into place a branding initiative, what happens is your residents become proud of where they live. They're able to identify with that core identity of the community. It gives them a platform from which to talk a little bit about where they live, to advocate a little bit for what's great about their community. We really see those numbers go up once we put a branding initiative in place, and in this case we do. We see them going up. So that's great. As for living in Hibbing, now visiting Hibbing, we have promoters. The highest number of people are number 10. So those advocates, those resident advocates, are some that are so strong that they're also advocating visiting in Hibbing. It's great living here, but man, you should come visit here too. It's a great place to visit. We have less promoters in the visiting category than we did for the living category. And when you look at it, the didn't increase quite as strongly as we would hope for them to if we didn't have an economic recession right there in the middle. Working is as good as well. Now these numbers, working in your community since the recession, we've seen some drastic changes. How likely folks are to suggest or to recommend working in your community, as you can imagine, with an economic recession. That's the first reputation that's going to be hit, a community's economic development perspective or jobs, offering jobs available in that community. Actually see those numbers go down a little bit, but when all is said and done, this is the comparison from 2008 to 2011, and actually improved 17%. That is fantastic in this kind of economy. Put brand into place, give residents something to identify with, and make them more likely to advocate for living in Hibbing. What we like to see. The other thing that we should remember is that most of the marketing efforts since the brand was put in place were oriented towards insiders. So they were oriented towards residents. We didn't actually hit visitors marketing very hard. The marketing messages were about living in Hibbing and what a great place this is to live. We're not necessarily surprised to see the number down a little bit. The economy, someone says, well, we're not going to recommend you sitting here because we don't have that many stores to offer, and that's one of the things that heard some residents complaining about a lack of economic development. However, it's awesome to see this improved. I know the the numbers before looked negative, but actually, when you look at it, they've improved 6% since we measured these back in 2008. So how likely are you to recommend working in Hibbing improved just a little bit, but improvement at all in of a recession? Quite impressive. So really, really good news here about improvement in scores from one year to the other. 3 years of the brand being in place and being marketed, the being put out there, the brand implemented, and we have some really strong positive results to show for it. Mean for Hibbing. First, from perspective, North Star is a community marketing firm. We develop brands for communities all over the U.S., and we do a lot of research projects to help them understand things like their reputation, their perception in the minds of their consumers and their residents. And we do go back and remeasure initiatives. And we to say that everyone has positive results, but it's actually not true. The nation is what matters. A brand is simply a blueprint. The same blueprint is for a house. To build in order to success, you actually have to build the house, which you actually have to put marketing initiatives into place. And I can say, in all honesty, by looking at these results, that it really is a lot of progress that we're seeing as far as changing perceptions. Changing perceptions is not an easy thing to do. And we definitely see some progress in this particular case. So very proud of Hibbing. It was our original branding client. We measured these associations and the brand image of Hibbing among your constituents and your residents. And we're definitely seeing some progress. So I just wanted to share that from my perspective, from North Star's perspective. Love seeing these kinds of results. Doesn't mean it necessarily that it was a great brand. It means that it was great implementation. So you all did a really great job of doing what you needed to do to get the word out there and to share this about the brand. What does this mean for Hibbing? 94% of residents recognize the brand. Over half of them, well over half of them, have positive associations with it. So we're doing right, getting residents excited about living in Hibbing. And they know what the brand is. The brand really contributed, and the implementation of the brand have contributed to a sense of identity for Hibbing. When we first did this research in 2008, associations were kind of all over the place. A lot were native, some mining, some tree, some town that moved. But these, when you look back at it, it's really more about mining, history, and all the other great things about living in Hibbing. So the brand has contributed to a stronger sense of identity. When we see a stronger sense of identity in the community, we see an increased level of pride, an increased level of community engagement, resident engagement. So these are all wonderful things, and it's working. What about Hibbing? Hometown pride has always been strong. Even 3 years ago, we had a lot of hometown pride, particularly related with the high school, but has strengthened in the last years. Because the willingness to promote Hibbing, as measured in the resident community, has increased by 17% as a place to live, and that's really strong. We're not used to seeing that kind of increase, so that was really great to see. That though, residents aren't feeling quite as positive about recommending Hibbing as a place to visit. Identify with the brand, they think it's positive. They're excited about sharing that with people about how great it is to live here. But they don't necessarily always feel as though we're offering more to visitors, especially for shopping and economic development, bringing stores, bringing businesses to Hibbing. And the descriptor growing actually did decrease among residents by about 8%. Now, in the middle there, we had an economic recession, so that is not shocking. But that is what has changed over these few years. So I said, we're just so proud of the progress that Hibbing has made. This has been a really great thing to see, to go back and remeasure those associations and advocacy. And that is our presentation for today.